Welcome back. In this video we are going to add the little icon here at the top, this hamburger icon, and then we will open up the drawer and close it accordingly. Of course, we want to have the right functionality for this. So let's go back to our code, and where this is going to happen is of course in the main activity. So let's go ahead and go to our activities here, the main activity. Currently it's an empty activity, it doesn't do much, right? So we still need to make some changes here. And I'd say we should start with creating the action bar. So setting up the action bar. So private function setup action bar. So I'm going to call this one. And in here, we're going to do the default stuff that we need to do to use a support action bar. So setup action bar here with our toolbar that we have. So we created a toolbar called toolbar main activity. So if you remember, in our app bar, we had this toolbar which we created, which was the one with the main activity. All right, so that is part one. Then I would like to add an icon to this toolbar. And in order to do so, what you can do is you can just add a navigation icon. So here, set navigation icon. And then which icon do I want to use? Well, r.drawable.ic action navigation menu. Now, of course, this icon doesn't exist yet, so let's create this resource. So let's copy this and go to new vector, then add the icon here, and here you can simply search for menu and then give it the name that we prepared, IC action navigation menu, next, and finish. And then if you want this toolbar icon to also have a functionality, you of course need to add an on-click listener. So toolbar main activity dot set navigation on-click listener. And what I want to execute here is to toggle the drawer. So therefore we need to have a function which will do that. So toggle drawer. All right, so let's create one. Private fun toggle drawer. And then here, what we can check is if the drawer layout, by the way, if we look at it, it's this one here. In the activity main, we have this drawer layout, which we gave an ID, which is drawer underscore layout. If that one is open, so we can check here, is drawer open. And what we need to pass to is drawer open is a drawer gravity integer. And here we can basically use the gravity compat start. So here, gravity compat dot start. Okay, so if the drawer is open, then I want to execute something. All right, so then I want to close the drawer. So drawer layout dot close drawer, and here we also need to add the gravity compat start. Okay, and then otherwise open the drawer. So drawer layout dot open drawer, and here again gravity compat start. So now here we can toggle the drawer once we click on the icon. And now, of course, we need to call our setup action bar in our onCreate method so that any of that will ever happen. All right, and then there's some other functionality that I would like to add, and that is when we press the back button, then the drawer should also close. All right, so then I also want to toggle the drawer. Okay, and if you want to override the on back pressed functionality, you can simply go ahead and say that you want to do that. So just implement the on back pressed method with override fun. And then what I want to do here, if that happens, is I want to simply check if the drawer layout is open. So basically what we have here, let's implement that. But I instead want to do, in the else case, our double back to exit. And that is a function that we prepared in our basic activity. So let's have a look. It's inside of our basic activity, right? Our base activity. So here, double back to exit. So if you want to use that in our main activity, we need to make sure that it inherits from our base activity. All right, so that's what we do. And now we can use the on or this double back to exit function. Now the next thing that I would like to have is a capability to click any of those icons or those options pretty much, right? So we have two options, sign out and my profile. And for now, in our case, they won't do anything. But in this example project which we prepared, there it is already. So we need to add something to our main activity so that we can actually have an selected or item selected listener. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to say navigation view dot on navigation item selected listener. Pretty long name, but if you import navigation view, it will probably help you out and it will be a lot easier to enter this whole name. Okay, so once you do that, main activity will ask you to implement some members, and in this case it's just this one function on navigation item selected. Okay, so here we can now implement the functionality that should execute once we click one of those navigation item options. Okay, so one of the navigation items, of course, is our logout function, and the other one is to open up the profile. So here we can just go ahead and say when the menu item that is passed to us, which is in our case called item, so when item dot item ID, and then we have the different cases. So case number one, the item ID is r.id.nav my profile. So if we look at it, nav my profile is in our activity main drawer, this item. So we have prepared this menu in the last video where we had this group of items, and one item was our my profile and the other one was my sign out, or this nav sign out. Okay, so if it's the my profile, for now what we will do is we will basically just write a little toast here. Okay, so nothing fancy. So toast, make text, and basically just say something like my profile. Later on, of course, we want to replace this with something more meaningful. So at that point, we will then replace it with the functionality that allows us, of course, to go over to the profile page. So we will need to create another activity which will do that. And then we have the other icon. So r.id.nav sign out. And what do we want to do if we press that button? Well, first of all, we want to sign out of Firebase. So Firebase auth dot get instance dot sign out. So at this point we can sign out, and then val intent. So we should move over to another activity, intent, and we need to import intent. So alt enter from this activity to the intro activity. So we send the user back to the intro activity class.java. And of course, double colon here. All right, and then we can add some flags to it. So let's add a flag to the intent, add flags. And the flags that I want to add is intent.flag activity clear top, or intent flag activity new task. All right, now you might wonder what those flags do. Well, you can anytime read through this. So there's a huge explanation. So if set and the activity being launched is already running in the current task, then instead of launching a new instance of that activity, all of the other activities on top of it will be closed, and this intent will be delivered to the now on top old activity as a new intent. Okay, and then for the flag new task, what that does is it says when using this flag, if a task is already running for the activity you are now starting, then a new activity will not be started. Instead, the current task will simply be brought to the front of the screen with the state it was last in. So basically, we're not starting a new activity for intro activity if there was an intro activity in our stack already. So in our activities stack, and we're just getting the intro activity to the front, so to speak. Okay, so this is what we do with those flags there. All right, and then we can, of course, start the activity with this intent. So start activity with intent, and then finish the current activity so that the user can't get back to the main activity once he signed out. So that's basically the idea, right? And of course, in any case, when the user clicked on anything, we want to close our drawer. So drawer layout, close drawer with this same concept that we had before with this gravity compat start. So if you want to know more about gravity compat start, push object to x-axis position at the start of its container, not changing its size. So it just pushes it to the left side. And this of course has to be done just here. Okay, one bracket later. And then if we look at our non-navigation item listener, it expects a boolean, so we need to return something. So let's just return true. And then the arrow here disappears as well. Okay, and now we can go to our onCreate. Here we set up the action bar, but we're not setting up our nav view. Not the nav view, but the nav view. And then we set the navigation item selected listener to this, because this class is going to be a navigation item selected listener, as we have added this part of code or this piece of code to the top of our main activity. So basically we're saying, okay, when something is clicked, do whatever is designed in here. So it's very similar to a on-click listener as we have seen before, but now it's an item selected listener because we have multiple items that we can click on. All right, and at that point we can test our application on the device. So let's see whether the icon works. So you can see we have the icon now. It's our menu icon that we added. When we click on it, it's there. Let's press the back button. Let's see. All right, it closes it. Let's press the back button again. You can see we get this little toast at the bottom, and then yeah, everything seems to work. Profile, you can see my profile is displayed. Now let's try to sign out, and we are sent back to the sign-in screen. Okay, so at this point we have added this navigation system, and it's quite some work, as you can see, but on the other hand, it's a super useful feature that you will see quite often in applications, and it's very, very helpful. All right, so I'd say let's go ahead and add some more features in the next video. See you there.